Some absolutely insane news happened in the gaming tournament yesterday, guys. That being all around FIFA. Apparently, FIFA having their FIFAe World Cup. I hate the way it's said, but we had over $300,000 on the line for first place prize. And evidently, well, it's a big stage for FIFA athletes. And unfortunately, a big blunder on the admin side. Everything being talked about around this was one decision costing one player potentially that $300,000 first place prize. And during this World Cup, we make it all the way to the finals. We got two great competitors, one being Manuel and one being Mark 11. And well, it went all the way to PKs. If you guys don't know how this World Cup format does work, in the grand finals, it was 2 games, aggregate score. So pretty much you play 2 legs or 2 games and you keep a continual score. After those 2 games, well, they were still all tied up. They went to penalty kicks, which I was told quickly on Twitter I'm supposed to call pens.
For Mark 11. And in time of probably a minute at most to come in. A moment to change your life. With one click of a button.
He's got a chance. No, penalties.
No. Penalties to the sides. A FIFAe World Cup champion.
And it was a nail biter. Like, I don't really watch FIFA esports, but this was actually really intense to watch, especially knowing first place prize brings home $300,000. Second place, $150,000. So any decision made here is going to cost one of the competitors, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's big time. And that is when some people noticed, well, especially one of the competitors, that when they got into PKs, the controllers were still being shown on screen. And this was also being done at the LAN itself on a giant big screen, to which you can see Mark calling for the referee because he noticed the controllers, which also show directions of either you directing the goalie or you directing your kicks, were being shown on screen, creating the potential for your opponent to see that or their coach to see it and communicate it. It creates that potential conflict of, you know, a competitive advantage. I'm not saying that Manuel and his team cheated. I don't think they did, but it creates the opportunity for your opponent to do so with lots of money on the line.
Steps up from the spot and it's saved again.
Oh,
Manu.
no.
Mbappe to go 2 up. Saved.
That changes things. That changes. Does go in. Mark does score. Manuel Bachoore.
Extra time finishes. He now knows
so
it's
that's
gonna...
where Mark spotted straight away.
Now he's seen it. He's pointing. Headphones coming out. Demon's seen it as well. Hand up 3 times.
The thing is as well, sorry to interrupt Rachel, is that Mark is also trying to still do his job of taking a penalty shootout when knowing that that's there. That is not a nice situation.
Yeah, his hand went up 5, 6 times there. So he made, you can see, I think, a couple of officials in the back, obviously they could all see this playing out.
And yeah, your head's elsewhere. You know, you're not involved. Every little fine detail in a penalty shootout and thinking whether they're going to go left, whether they're going to go right, whether they're going to, you have to take the step. You're trying to think about that, but Mark's obviously very concerned with what he's seeing there. The officials are having conversations. You can see the microphone raised, and there isn't a decision. No one's gone, yes, let's pause this, you know, and let's go back to it. I don't know.
Well, we do have confirmation then that the decision does stand, and Manuel Bachoore is.
And this is exactly what Mark was complaining about, even the broadcast pointing out how several times he had waved his hands to admins. Meanwhile, as he is doing this, he is trying to play. If you guys know FIFA, pens go so fast. When you go to pens or, you know, traditional, what sports call overtime, but of course they have overtime, then pens. Pens in soccer and in FIFA go really fast. That is why he is calling for the admin, and then his coach telling him, hey, you got to still play. And before you know it, it's over. And even despite the extra pens, Mark ends up losing this. And like I said earlier, this decision cost him $150,000.
Champion! Manuel Bachoore! $300,000 richer. This year's FIFAe World Cup champion. There is a new name that steps up from the Netherlands.
Mark 11,
There is
clearly
controversy.
angry, upset with the penalty shootout. We'll have to get to the bottom of this. One thing is for certain, Manuel Bachoore is the man on top of the FIFA esports landscape. I kept seeing throughout the shootout, Mark 11 turning around, and
The obvious complaint is
the penalties on the big
penalties
screen.
are on the big screen here in the arena.
And overall, it's a sucky situation because Manuel could have won regardless. Even if they restarted this or if the admins had taken care of the situation and resolved the issue of that controller being on screen, Manuel still could have won it. Very much so. Everyone should know that. None of this fault falls on either of these players, Manuel or Mark. It falls on the tournament themselves or the admins. And it's got to be a hectic situation to be thrown into. Last minute, all of a sudden, a player's waving you down. And what do? Well, hopefully a lot of people would think you'd restart the matchup in pens. I don't even know if the game is capable of doing that. And so all of this, it came down to a final moment, the grand finals of one of the biggest FIFA events of the entire year. In total, just in the grand finals, $500,000 on the line. And the difference between these two competitors, $150,000. And that one choice could have just cost that player. Later on Twitter, Mark going to make a statement, still very happy with his second place finish. I would say a great response not to try and trash the competition and the choice that was made. And you feel for Manuel because it's almost like a tainted win, especially on social media with everyone talking about it. It's a sucky situation for everyone involved, 100%. And later on that day, FIFAe giving their final statement on this in the penalty shootout at the FIFAe World Cup, saying, following the FIFAe World Cup final earlier this evening, FIFAe would like to provide the following clarification and factors that have been considered. All players have been informed at the start of the FIFAe World Cup 2023 that if they actively decide themselves to show the input overlay, it might be displayed on broadcast and in the arena. Throughout the entire competition, the feed of the home console was visible on the stream and within the arena. This also included games with the input overlay. The same situation occurred during the semifinals, including a penalty shootout, and no further concerns have been raised by the players prior to the start of the final. After a thorough review of the footage, we can also confirm that no player received a competitive advantage as the opposite team only watched their own screen. According to the competition rules, games can only be paused if technical issues occur, which did not take place during the penalty shootout. The final decision that has been taken based on review of the competition footage, in line with the player terms and conditions, and following detailed briefings about controller and broadcast settings to all players during practice matches. So they are standing by the ruling, saying neither side actually took advantage of that. I don't think anyone had that in doubt. Also saying there was no technical issue during that grand finals pens. I would say they didn't address the issue of why the player was waving down admins and no response was made. It's an unfortunate, hectic situation, which I'm sure they maybe weren't prepared to have to go through. They also mentioned as well this was done during the semifinals, which, yeah, if you watch back on the footage, the controllers were actually displayed on these semifinal matches. I would just then wonder maybe the players didn't recognize or notice it then. They just noticed it in grand finals. And so a lot of people had a lot to say, and I would say an overwhelming response, especially fresh to the scene. A lot of people disappointed with this, which FIFAe then responded with at least the evidence that Manuel did not take advantage of it, which again, I don't think anyone thought Manuel cheated. The issue being that a player raised a concern, the concern was not answered during such a pivotal moment of the entire tournament with so much money on the line is what I think people took a lot of issue with. And so it comes down to all of a sudden one decision, one choice, and frankly, about 30 seconds cost this player $150,000 in one of the biggest moments he'll probably ever experience. And that is just the sucky part. Understand certainly after the whole tournament, what the organizers had to go through, the admins, it's a complicated process, and maybe not expecting this hectic of an issue at such a last moment. It just sucks, man. And regardless of what you think about this, I mean, what do you guys think? It was a thriller to watch. This is one of the first times I've actually ever watched FIFA esports, I'll be honest. It was a thriller. I actually do enjoy the format, and for a grand finals of this World Cup to come down to pens was pretty awesome, just not so awesome the way it ultimately finished. So what do you guys think? No fault to either competitors. Obviously, it's not their fault. Just an overall sucky situation for everyone involved. Till next time, take care, drink up. We'll catch you back here sometime soon.